Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm reviewing a pen from Pilot. This is a pen that I had sort of been looking at for quite a while and then eventually decided yep, I'm going to get it and review it. As you can see on the label here, the pen is the Custom Heritage 92 fountain pen. So I'm going to talk about the pen and do a writing sample, that kind of stuff. This is the box it comes in. It's not currently in here. I just wanted to show you because I actually found something to be quite funny. Now, for those of you who are familiar with, I'll show it to you quickly here, the Custom Heritage 92, you know this is one of the few fountain pens from Pilot that actually uses a piston mechanism, not a vac or cartridge converter, a piston mechanism. So this is the box that it comes in, and you can see this is the box that Custom 92. And if you open it up, what do you get? Little care instructions, a little use and care guide, and an ink cartridge, which I love because it's totally useless in this pen. I will make use of that in another pen very, very easily. But a nice simple box from Pilot, and one of the things I like about the company is their simple sort of branding and all of that. So this is the pen. So I'm going to talk about the parts and features and then we'll do a writing sample. So start at the top. We've got a flat top pen, which I really enjoy. It swells out slightly to the little clip band, and you've got the Pilot sword clip, which is a traditional clip that they use. The cap kind of swells out to this center band that has like all the Custom Heritage 92 Pilot Japan written on it. A little step down off that plastic end of the cap there, and then the barrel, which is mostly cylindrical until you get to this little, which it kind of needs to be for a piston filler because you've got to have really parallel walls for the piston to work. Little band, and then the piston turning knob, which I won't turn. I will say the piston on this is very smooth, but it does have a limited range of movement. It doesn't have a huge capacity. And then a little flat top on the end there. The pen is made from, as they say, resin, which is basically plastic. The cap screws off in just over 1.5 turns. They say 1 3/4. It's kind of in between 1.5 and 1 3/4. And then we reveal this smaller section. It's not particularly long. And then the nib, which is 14 karat gold and rhodium plated. It's got this little band here. You don't take apart Pilot pens. They're kind of quite secure. You can take them apart, but I think it's actually best to leave them put together unless you really game and want to actually do maintenance and things yourself. The cap sort of tapers slightly and there's a little swell out on the end there. I really like the Pilot nib that comes on this pen. It's a number 5 size nib of theirs, which is their own sizing of nibs, and this is a fine medium. And then there is the plastic feed. So that is basically the pen. It posts quite nicely. You can see it posts, past that piston knob. It sits nicely in the hand. It's a very, very sort of standard sort of pen. A pen that I liken it to a lot is the Pilot Custom 74. Now, it's not exactly just the piston filling flat end version of that. There are a few different sort of design elements, but you can see in terms of size, they're similar. They use a similar nib, if not the same nib. And if you imagine like squaring off the ends of these pens, the Custom 70, the Pilot 70 Custom 74, you would end up with a pen that is, quite similar in length to the Custom Heritage 92 here. And if we take off the caps, you can see exactly how similar these nibs and sections are. So they're both the number 5 nib. This is the 74 I have here is the fine, but I think it's more or less the same nib, and it's definitely got a very, very similar section in terms of profile. Not exactly the same, but very, very similar. Pilot is a Japanese brand. The 92 in its title refers to the year 2010, which is when this pen was released, and that was the company's 92nd year. So it's always something like, it's nice to be able to tie those numbers into something. Time for a size comparison, and as always, I've put it alongside the Lamy Safari here because it's a really great pen that a lot of people are familiar with. You can see it's a touch shorter. It's a few millimeters shorter than the Lamy Safari when it is capped. Uncapped, you see it is still considerably shorter. The section widths are kind of similar, but the Lamy has a very distinct section, whereas the Pilot, it's smooth, it's round, and it's sort of a little bit more traditional. And then posted, we see the Lamy is still considerably longer here than the Pilot Custom Heritage 92. So what are the dimensions of the 92? Well, they're 136 millimeters long when they are capped. Uncapped, it's 122, which for some might be on the smaller side. I find this quite comfortable. I also find the fact that the section is not too long to be fine because these threads are quite smooth and the step down is not noticeable. So if you're holding it on there, if anything, it just gives you a little bit more grip. It means you don't have to like hold right down on the end of the section there. The section is 9.8 millimeters in the middle there, which is getting to be a comfortable width. The pen, when it's posted, is 151 millimeters, and this is how I prefer to write with it. And I do find I hold it slightly further back when I do that. It just makes the balance really nice in the hand. It means that you feel the pen in the webbing of your hand and in your fingers, not being pulled back at all. The pen weighs 20 grams in total, 12 in the body and 8 in the cap. So when you do post it, it's lucky it posts relatively deeply into the hand there, because that's a good amount of weight on the back of the pen, and a lot of that is this sort of metal clip there at the back. Have some Clairefontaine paper here. Going to do a writing sample now. This is the Pilot Custom Heritage 92. It's a 14 karat gold. This is a fine medium nib. And the ink I have in this today is Robert Oster Perth, which is from the Australian Cities series. It's a nice sort of dark grey, not quite black, but dark grey ink, which I thought tied in really nicely with this black. This is the black version of the pen. I kind of think of it as like it's a smoky kind of black, because it is sort of transparent enough, you know, that you can see through it. It means that also you get to see how much ink you've got in the pen as well. But I thought this ink tied in nicely with that. So you can see it writes quite nicely. It's wet enough. It lays down a nice amount of ink. It's smooth. There's a hint of feedback, and I call it that. Well, it's what I refer to as the Japanese feedback. But what's really nice about these nibs that are on these 14 karat gold nibs that come on this pen and like the 72 and things like that, or 1974, is that they're soft. They're not springy. Please don't say they're springy. They're not even as soft as like the Pilot Falcon nibs, but there's a gentle, how do I say it? A gentle bounce to the nib that I really appreciate. It's not so much for line variation or anything like that, but it's just, it has a really pleasant feeling on the page as you write. Let's do some quick writing. I've never had any issues with this pen, hard starts or skipping or anything like that. It's super, super reliable. Reverse writing is very, very scratchy. In fact, kind of awful. But it lays down a nice amount of ink. It kind of writes well enough under its own weight. It's well balanced. But yeah, in general, everyday writing with this nib, I find it to be really pleasant. So what are the pros and cons of the Pilot Custom Heritage 92? Well, I'm going to start with the cons, and there is only one, and that is the Australian price. Now, I understand there's import and all that kind of stuff and fees and everything that have to go along with all of that. I totally get it. But the US price sits about $220 at full price. You can find it cheaper regularly. The Australian recommended retail price, and from one major seller here in Australia that sells it at retail price, is $349. That is much more than the conversion, and that's kind of a problem I have with a lot of pens coming into Australia, and particularly from brands like Pilot. If you get this on the grey market, the pen comes in around the $200 to $250 mark, which makes it in Australia, which makes it a much more approachable pen. It's got a nice gold nib, all of that kind of stuff. So $220 US at full retail, $349 in Australian full retail. What are the pros? Well, that nib. It's beautiful. It writes well. It looks great. It has a lovely feel to it. It's reliable. It's consistent. Everything you want. Another pro is the fact that this is a piston filler. You can see the bit of the piston mechanism just in there. So no need for converters, and the Pilot converters are not amazing. It's a simple piston filler. It works well, it has a decent ink capacity. I don't mind that grey market price on places like eBay for the 200 to 250 Australian dollar mark. I think that makes it a very, very attractive pen. One thing I love is the balance of this pen. When I post it, as I said, and that band sits on the webbing of my hand, it feels very comfortable, it feels nice, and the size is good, the weight is good, all of that. The other things I really enjoy, simple things, are some of the classic design elements. Firstly, pairing the black with the chrome or the rhodium plated trim, I think is beautiful. Secondly, I love the sword clip. It's a very traditional Pilot clip. I think it's really very, very nice. And the other thing, another design element, is just that flat top and flat bottom. I do love the 72 or 74, but I think the aesthetic of the 92 is just absolutely stunning. So this was the Pilot Custom Heritage 92 in black. With a fine medium nib. Now, one thing I will say about Japanese nibs is that generally speaking, they are one nib size finer than like a German nib, for instance. So if you get a Yovo medium, a Pilot medium will be slightly finer. But this fine medium, I think, writes quite bang on that fine medium mark for me. It's fine, but it's not Japanese fine, and that's where that fine medium comes in. And the nibs on this pen, you can find lots of different nib variations, standard or fine and medium. But yeah, I think it's a really great pen at a price that, if you can get it for a good price, it's certainly worth looking at. So thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. Like and subscribe, all that kind of stuff. If you've got something you'd like me to look at, let me know. Or if there's a way you would like to support the channel by sponsoring a review or providing an item for review, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.